Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are back with Darklord. It has been a long time since I've talked about Darklord, and with the new Horus support, I figured, hey, let's give it another run and see if Darklord is back. Now, it has been a hot second since I have played Darklord, so forgive any of the deck building and actual gameplay misplays, but for the most part, I feel like I have still understood the deck. It's a pretty simple deck, let's be honest. But here it is with Horus, and yeah, pretty much the idea is, hey, Horus cards are pretty good, that's it. That's the whole idea. The idea ends there. Let's just throw in Horus cards into Darklord. There is no synergy. Not really. It's just kind of like, Horus gets us there. Trust. So let's quickly go through the card by card and explain the choices. So starting off with triple Maxi, triple Ash Blossom. This is basically all that we can play in terms of hand traps. And we're playing the Ash Blossom because of Crossout, so there's that. There might be better options, but I figured, hey, 3 Ash, 3 Maxi is fairly decent. It stops Maxi while also allowing us to potentially play through additional things. We're also playing the 2 Called By because pretty much you need to. And then the 1 Crossout, as I mentioned previously. And that's it. That's it for non-engine. Only nine pieces of non-engine. Because guess what? You cannot afford anything else. So there you go. And even with that being said, it's still a bricky mess. So we have 1 Ukobak, which is a target for our Indulged Darklord, which we're playing 3 of. I'm not going to explain all of the Darklord cards. I have many videos of Darklords. If you want to go look that up, you can. But for the most part, this is our best normal summon. So we're going to play 3 of it. It's in fact basically the only normal summon in our deck. So there you go. Technically speaking though, Morningstar is also a normal summon because you tribute summon it. So there's that. That's another one. Then we're playing 1 apiece of Amdusk and Superbia and Tez. All 3 of them have very different effects. This one adds a card back from the graveyard by pitching another card, and itself, Superbia brings back another guy when it is special summoned, which do keep that in mind. It does matter. And then, of course, Tez has built-in protection. Just discard it instead of having one of your cards destroyed. We're playing 2 Nastin. I don't know why. We're playing 2. I feel like, yeah, that's it. It's okay to draw, so why not play 2 of it? This should probably just be the second Superbia, realistically. Superbia is another 8. Superbia is just like a dead card anyway, similar to how Nastin is 90% of the time. So, yeah. We're playing triple Eggshell to draw cards, because of course we are, and then the 1 Morningstar as our big boss. Now, I say Morningstar is the big boss, but technically speaking, we are playing 2 of the first Darklord, which is technically the big boss, but let's be honest, this is the guy who's winning you the game. Then, of course, we are playing triple Banishment and triple Darklord Contact for our spells. And then 1 apiece of Rebellion, Sanctified. This could also be the, what is it, Enchantment. I'm not as big of a fan of Enchantment, but at least right now, because of, like, Snake Eyes and stuff like that, I feel like negating an effect is a little bit better. And then, of course, 1 Uprising as well, giving us the ability to even go into the first Darklord. And that's it for the Darklord main deck. As for the Horus cards, triple Imsteady, 1 Dua, 1 Happy, and then 2 apiece of Sark as well as Walls. They're all pretty good. They're all pretty standard in terms of ratios. You could maybe play less Wall, but I feel like just getting the Horus cards is a lot better, so why not play them? As for the extra deck, I don't know. I kind of threw this together pretty quickly, but we are playing 2 first Darklord as well as 2 Condemned. Those are probably the most important stuff. We're playing a whole bunch of rank 8s. We're playing Giant Trainer, the Hope Harbinger, the Orcust, or the Dingirsu, the Photon Lord, and the Zombie Vampire, as well as a Zeus, because why not, you know? But yeah, all things considered, I feel like all of these have come up, except for Giant Trainer. Giant Trainer is a bait most of the time. There are sometimes, because in this deck in particular, it's pretty good, but for the most part, it's just going to be Impermed, or it's just going to be, like, Veilered or something like that. I've never really had this actually do much, but when it does draw, it's pretty good, so there's that. However, for the most part, you're better off going for like a Hope Harbinger or a Photon Lord or something like that. Or Zombie Vampire, which can then special summon something like a Darklord, like for example, Ixchel or Nastin that you may mill. So that's also pretty good. Then of course we have ourselves the IP Masquerena, the SP Little Knight, the Apollosa, the Underworld Goddess, and the Access Code Talker. Now, I didn't make all of these necessarily. SP I obviously made. Apo, there were a bunch of options for me to go into that, but I chose different options. So there's that. Access Code Talker is a bit difficult, but it's very good at closing out games if you have, if you haven't used Indulged. Underworld Goddess is an IP Masquerena target similar to basically the rest. So there's that. And IP Masquerena is pretty good as well, given the fact that if you can go for like a Condemned into, you know, special summon 2 of these guys, make IP Masquerena. You can go into something like an Apollosa, you can go into Underworld Goddess. There's a lot of fairly decent options there. So that's kind of why we're doing it. Or why we're playing what we are. But that's it. We also have a lot of like extra deck space. You could play, instead of playing like Ash or something like that, or instead of playing like 3 copies Ash, 3 copies Maxi, you could play Super Polymerization and play Super Poly targets. Like that's a really good option as well. You could play... I was going to say something else, but honestly, no, you can't do that. There are very few options. It's Darklords. You kind of need very specific amounts of cards. But yeah, there you go. That's it. Let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performed. Alright, so here we are going first, and the Roach! That's right, baby. That's the Roach. But we're going to start off here with the King Sark into the Happy, since we already have the Imseti. I'm like, yeah, might as well. We'll put back the Sanctified. We're going to activate the effect of the Imseti. We're going to draw into we're going to add our King Sark. We draw into Contact, which is pretty interesting. I go for the Banishment here, and I grab Superbia. This ends up being a big mistake. Realistically, I should have grabbed, like, Ixchel or something like that. But I was like, oh, it's an 8. I should grab this one. That was silly. And you'll see why in a second. So I pitched the Superbia, and I'm like, oh, I will simply mill better, trust. But realistically, I should have been playing around hand traps and stuff like that. I summon all of these guys. I keep... I specifically keep the Dua on my field because of the fact that its on-field effect is probably the best thing for me right now. So if my opponent were to Gamma or were to, like, Imperm or something like that, this is just going to be the best card for me to retain. So that's kind of why we're doing that. We're going to go for the Zombie Vamp, and probably the worst set of mills my opponent could have seen. Or I should say, the worst mills that I could have seen from my opponent. 3 Runics and Naturia Sacred Tree. Tragic. So out comes the Naturia Sacred Tree. They're going to grab the Camellia. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. I'm going to go for the Darklord Contact here in order to go into a Hope Harbinger. The reason I go for the Hope Harbinger, pretty self-explanatory. Spells. You know, they have the Camellia. Hopefully we can do this. They go for the Naturia Camellia. They're going to pitch another one of the Sacred Tree and grab up the Naturia Blessing. I'm like, sure. They're going to activate the effect in order to special summon it. And I'm like, no. Here's a Roach. And luckily, we have Hope Harbinger to negate. They're going to go and special summon. I'm like, A-okay. There are like 2 things I care about. And one of those is Called By, which they didn't activate, so there's that. And the second one is Runic Fountain. Runic Fountain, if it hits the field, that's what I'm worried about. But of course, my opponent pitches the second Naturia, or the third Naturia Sacred Tree. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's great. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, I love once per turns. It's really cool. So they're just gonna go for the Synchro Summon here into the Coral Dragon. I'm like, sure. Now, they are under Maxi, but I mean, away goes my Hope Harbinger, heaven forbid. But it's honestly not that big of a deal, given the fact that, like, they have the field spell, which is nice. I draw Ash, which does matter. But they're gonna keep doing a bunch of silly plays. But I do end up just drawing 2 here off of the Dua, which they don't negate with Sunflower, which is... I think that's probably a bad idea. I think you just negate this. I understand why they don't, but I feel like you just negate, probably. But yeah, like... I mean... Even if they didn't play into Maxi, they didn't really have a lot of good plays. Or at the very least, they didn't make a lot of good plays. Because this was 3 Naturia Sacred Tree, and this is what they ended on. Like, there's not a whole lot that they can do. And I have all of my monsters in grave. So we go Imseti. They go for the Banish effect here, and I'm like, you could have waited. But they really wanted to get their draws. And I'm like, okay, here's Ash Blossom. That gets rid of their negate. They just have to get rid of those cards. And I'm like, okay, this game's over. Also, by the way, this card does say your opponent can only activate 1 spell trap per turn. Funnily enough, that doesn't matter. But yeah, I just summon the Happy here, and I just switch everything to attack position, and I can literally just walk into their field and kill them. So, there you go. Now, I also could have, like, continued playing the game, but, I mean, even if that Maxi wasn't there, I guess at the very least, I wouldn't have drawn Ash, which would have mattered, but that game was over. So, good game. Alright, and once again, going first. We do better going first, but this is basically just Darklords, and you'll see why in a second. We're going to start off here with the Banishment. We're going to grab the Indulged Darklord, activate it, normal summon it, activate it. They're going to activate their Maxi. I'm going to Ash that. They're going to Gamma. I'm going to call it by the Maxi. And I'm like, well, that was fun. We're probably boned now, aren't we? Because honestly, this board is not going to be very good. I have to go for the Amdusk here, otherwise I have no play. So we go for the Amdusk effect, grab back the Contact, and we're going to activate the Contact here. We're going to activate the Contact, grabbing back the Amdusk. Amdusk is going to then activate its effect to grab the Rebellion using the Banishment effect. So away goes the Gamma, away goes the Driver, and I'm like, okay, cool. And Animadorn Archosaur popping! What else but Pterodon? Because of course. So out comes Soul Eating Oviraptor. Out comes the Miscellaneousaurus. I'm like, I'll just wait for the Miscellaneousaurus. They make SP. And then don't do anything because SP requires a monster from the extra deck to do something. Anyway, so I go for the Rebellion here because they're going for the Miscellaneousaurus. And I'm like, okay, they're probably dumb enough to activate the SP here because they're like, ah, I can activate it. Therefore, I should. And like, fantastic, do your thing. So we do get the one non-target pop, but we're also going to go for the Contact here. And since they sent away the Ukobak, we get to bring back the Ukobak onto our field and mill a card. And notably, because they banish our Amdusk, we can now, when that comes back, potentially grab something off of this banishment. So that's pretty nice. My opponent is then going to banish 2 in order to go for the Baby Sarah. And of course, they just drew UCT. Now, granted, they could have specialed from deck had they had something. I should say, had they had a different type, a non-dinosaur. They only had dinosaurs. But of course, they just drew the UCT anyway, and it doesn't matter. So they're going to go for the Baby Sarasaurus in order to go into Kaito Terra, which is a card that Dino players have started playing, and what you need to know is it grabs Polymerization and also special summons itself, and then also adds a Polymerization back to the hand when banished. It's a very silly card, but my opponent just didn't decide to activate the effect and just passed, and now I'm very confused. I would imagine what likely happened is they didn't actually have anything with which to do anything with the polymerization, or they would have just like gotten rid of UCT, which they probably didn't want to do. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just like, that's kind of weird that we decided to go for this guy as opposed to like anything else. You know, like Giant Rex would have been better. There would have been a million other options that would have been better. It's not that big of a deal. I attempt to go to the battle phase just to force out this UCT. Of course, they activate the effect. I'm like, great, fantastic. I'm going to activate the Amdusk. They didn't activate the SP, and I'm like, great, fantastic. I grab Morningstar here, and they pop the SP, which is, again, why? Why? Why not pop the Kaito Terra? Because they're silly. Anyway, we go for the Indulged here. We're going to activate the effect of the Indulged, give them the Superbia, and add to our hand the Ixchel. Here, we Tribute Summon Morningstar. And that is 1, 2, 3 free specials. This is why Morningstar is actually the boss monster. We're going to then mill 5, because that is 5 Darklords. And guess what? Well, actually, I think it's fairies. No, it is Darklords. And then we mill, and we get to then mill a Contact, which gets us back the Ukobak, which Ukobak mills our Banishment, and then Banishment is going to be used in order to search out the Uprising, and now we can draw 2 with the Ixchel, which is A-okay. We're going to draw 2, and we draw King Sark, which is great, and then we're going to fuse into our first Darklord, and since we used Morningstar, that field is Gone. Destroy all cards your opponent controls. All to the graveyard. Fantastic. And we're just going to walk in for well over lethal. I could have also gone for the King's Arc, pitch 2, send 2 Imsetis, put 3 additional bodies onto my side of the field, including, well, at the very least, I could have potentially put additional 3 additional bodies onto my side of the field. So, yeah, the game was over. Coolio. Alright, once again, going first, once again, with Maxi. This one is more so just to showcase how good this deck is at capitalizing on the opponent having very little. We draw into the Ash, we have the Maxi. We're just going to go here with the Contact into the Ixchel. Ixchel is then going to grab up the Morningstar, is going to Contact to bring out the Nastin, and then Nastin effect is going to grab up the Indulged. We're going to go for the Indulged here. We're going to normal summon, we're going to special summon the Ukobak, grab up. I grab up Nastin. This is a bad play. I don't know why I grab Nastin. That's just silly. We're going to activate the Condemned in order to grab up the Ixchel and just pass and hope and pray that we have follow-up. This was kind of silly of me. Realistically, I probably should have grabbed Trap, but I was like, oh, I have Maxi Ash. I should be fine. I have Maxi Ash Tez. Like, I could have gone SP or something like that. This probably wasn't the best option. Realistically, with the search, I probably should have gone for one of the traps. The trap with Tez and Nastin and Ixchel is just, like, way better. Whether that is Sanctified or whether it's the other one, the Rebellion. Pop 2, non-target pop 2 with Max Ash, pretty good. So, that would have been a little bit better. I wouldn't have had as good a follow-up, so that's kind of the thing. But I just, Maxi, they pass the turn. Great, fantastic. That's the end of the game. I draw into the King's Arc. And again, this is more so what I wanted to show you. It's this idea that basically, because of like the because of the Horus stuff, we can put out 8,000 damage, easy peasy lemon squeezy. So we mill, we go into Happy, we go into the Imseti, we bring out the Dua, we flip everything to attack. I discard here to grab up the Morningstar. I'm playing around Nib still, because that's 3 summons, and then we Tribute Summon into the Morningstar. We're going to mill a whole bunch of cards, gain a bunch of life points, and then just walk in for well over lethal. Which I think is one of the biggest, like, boons to having the Horus stuff, is that it's a lot easier to get additional bodies onto your side of the field. But to be fair, I could have had lethal there even without the Horus stuff. So, good game. Not really. Alright, we're back with the deck, and honestly, how does the Horus stuff work well with this deck? Honestly, you're either playing Horus or you're playing Darklord. You're not really playing them too well together. There are some incidental synergies, like for example, if you really wanted to, you could play more Superbia, you could play Nurgle, that's more 8s, you could potentially do stuff like that. You could play maybe more of the Horus stuff to maybe do that, and have like the draw engine of Ixchel. The problem with that, in particular, is the fact that like, Ixchel is super intensive on the amount of cards that it needs, so an Ash Blossom could just end your turn right there, because you kind of have to have very specific cards, as well as, like, if it ends up not resolving, you don't really have much to do off of it. So it's not, like, too great if you were to do something like that. Like, Ixchel's just not really good at draw option. But, with that being said, it's fairly decent. The additional bodies that you get off of the Imseti, or off of the Horus stuff, which also has like some pretty neat effects, most notably Happy, being able to add 2 cards back to your hand is very, very strong. For example, being able to add back Ixchel and a card that you want to utilize the Ixchel with, like for example, adding back Ixchel and Superbia, discarding those 2 in order to get an additional draw 2, pretty good. You also have the ability to draw additional cards with the effect of the Dua, as well as Imseti just replacing the amount of cards, which is nice. And then also putting bodies onto the field, you can go into Giant Trainer and stuff like that. That's it, though. There's not really any synergy. It's like, oh, Graveyard Reliant deck and Graveyard Reliant deck, they technically go together. Now, is this the best version of Darklord? Yeah, probably, because the Horus stuff is actually good, right? Is it... Well, maybe it's not the best. It's definitely good. It's better than regular Darklord. But is this better than like branded Darklord? Maybe. Because branded fusion is at 1, but if branded fusion was at 3, this would definitely be the better version. So, hard to say. All in all, though, I mean, it was fun. It was fun playing it. I'll probably not do it very often, but hey, Darklords are back. Hooray. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. Darklords, I've talked about the issues with Darklords and what they do. I think the biggest thing to take away from all of this is Darklords, or I should say, that you should take away from this, is an understanding that Darklords are not a graveyard-reliant deck. They are a deck that requires cards in hand, named cards in hand, because basically all of their effects need an additional guy in their hand. The only one that doesn't is like this one, because it just discards any card. Basically every other card needs a Darklord or something of that nature to actually do anything. Yes, it has graveyard synergies, but as like every deck does, that's not really that big of a deal. Most of the stuff is relying on cards in hand. So keep that in mind. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did enjoy it. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated. Let me know what you think the best version of Darklords is. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.